I'll tell you what, you don't wear a bra or undies out of the house one time and you realize how naked we truly are underneath all of our clothing. I am not wearing a bra right now. Well, I'm not wearing either, but I'm in the confines of my house, so you can't judge me. You can't judge me in this space. But yesterday, I went outside with nary a bra and I thought, under these clothes, we are just naked. That is a harrowing, humbling experience. Now, we have hit our final days in London. Can you believe the journey we have travelled on all together? Also, can you hear the wind? The Foley of this podcast, truly, maybe not number one comedy podcast, but number one Foley podcast, Foley comedy podcast on the charts. It's got to be. Last week we had the ice cream truck. Today we have wind and the hot air coming out of my mouth. And if that's not a perfect combination that you get for free, tell me something better and I'll do it. Now we have hit the final week of London. Can you believe how far we've come together? When you see two sets of footprints in the sand, in the concrete of London City, who is it? Not me, with God beside me, but you, this podcast, these people. You guys have gotten me from A to wherever the fuck we are in the alphabet now. I leave in a few days to go to Manchester to do some shows in Liverpool and Manchester. Then I go to Paris. So the next podcast may even be me just talking to you on a train, or I don't know where I'm going to be next week. And that's something that we can both be terrified and excited about. So for the last episode in this apartment, what do we want to talk about? I don't know. Let's just get into it and see where the mania takes us, shall we? Grab my hand, let's get into it. Breathe in. Welcome to What the Fuchs with Jess Fuchs. Now breathe out. And scream. Because here's what's pissed Jess off this week. There's a kind of calmness that you might feel like has washed over me. And to that I say yes, because I've accepted my fate. Because last night I went and saw Hadestown. When I realized that the depression was high and the bank account was low in this city, what I thought was, what you need to do is take yourself out every so often on some sort of activity, and it can be cheap or free. The other day I went to the British Museum. Then last night I went to see Hadestown. Now we will get into that in terms of the specifics because I'm curious. I'm curious about a number of things as it pertains to Hadestown. But what I want to say is the more art that I engage with, the dumber I realize I am. And whilst I know that that's probably normal, but like last night I'm sitting in Hadestown, there's teens beside me and they seem to be like understanding the plot, and I'm sitting there going, now, what's this? What is happening? So the premise of it is it's based on an old, I think, Greek tragedy. Okay. And the idea is that there's like I think Hades, who is like king of the underworld, god of the underworld. He has a wife, Persephone. And she is like, they fell in love. And then he brings her down to the underworld for half of the year. And I think that was their way of explaining like why you get summer and flowers grow, which is when Persephone, who's like, he found in like her mother's garden walking through the fields and fell in love with her. So like the idea is like when it's like warm, he had allowed her up onto the earth, and that's why things grow, because Persephone is like warm and free and roaming around. And then the other months when she's not there is the winter months, because she's down in Hades. Then there's, oh God, what's his name? Orpheus and Eurydice. I can't believe I've retained this. Talk about feeling dumb. I feel smart. So then it's Orpheus and Orpheus and then Eurydice. Anyway, they meet, and then she sells her soul to go down into Hades because she has no money or she's starving or something. And he promises her like, whatever. I think the idea is she's dead, right? And then Orpheus, I think that was the man's one, he's like, oh my God, I love her and I can't be without her. So then he goes to track her down into the hell, the depths of Hades. And then, we're getting confused together, right? But I have to tell you this to tell you that I feel really stupid, because so he goes down into hell to find his love, and he goes, and then Hades is like, dude, you can have her back, but you have to walk through hell and she's behind you and you're not allowed to look back. Now, in this musicale, he gets to what looks like his place back on earth and then looks back and she gets sucked down into hell. So what I'm trying to understand is, did he not make it? Did he not make it? On a technicality, he looked like he made it. And if he did or didn't make it, if he made it, either way, what is the lesson here? Is there a lesson? Is there something we are supposed to take with us? Or is it just a story for story's sake, in which case it's a tragedy? And I guess that's why it's called a tragedy. But I wanted to do a little bit of research because I felt dumb because I left there going, what was the goddamn point of that? And I don't think that at the end of every podcast you learn a lesson. Well, that's not true. I think you leave a better person than you were before. Or you leave, at the very least, what I would say is you leave less alone because you realize there are other stupid people out there, or you feel superior because you're like, she might be the dumbest bitch to be in town. And to that I say, you're welcome. I have no problem being seen as stupid. It actually doesn't bother me. So I saw that and I just sat there at the end and I thought, now, what the fuck was the point of that? And the music was good and the costumes were good, but I guess, but then I see The Devil Wears Prada, worst musical I've ever seen in my life. What a waste of money. And there's no, well, is there a message to that? I guess the story is that she stands up to, what's her name, Miranda Priestley. So I guess in that way she like loses herself in the like bullshit of, you know, Cosmo or whatever magazine she works for. Again, what magazine? Come on, bitch. They just replaced the person. Who cares? I don't know. But I guess she learns a little bit about herself, which I think is positive. Whereas in this, I guess he like fought for his love. So that's what I wanted to look up today because I've been feeling really dumb since last night. The primary message of Hadestown is one of hope, resilience, and the value of trying, even when faced with overwhelming odds. Okay. According to Google, if we even believe the internet anymore with all of this fake news and just AI shit. And you know, the people doing AI and trying to trick us are coming for Hadestown first because they know if they can change the musicals, they can change the world. So yes, Orpheus turns back in Hadestown, but not because the trial was rigged. He turns back out of doubt and lack of trust that Eurydice is still following him. Okay, so it's just about belief and trust that someone will do what they say. But see, as a bitch who's been burned, it's very hard to not bring your baggage from a past burning to a future burning, you know? Well, I shouldn't even call it a future burning because the whole idea is to have some trust that you won't get burned again. It was good. I just think this is my narcissism in the mirror, obsessed with myself skill set, is I listen and I watch and I go, with the right training, I could be doing it. And how sick is that? And I don't know if people think that about themselves, but I think that about most things. And I know that it's mentally ill. I'm not saying that it is like fair play to think that. I sit there, sport, anything. I watch anything at its highest level. And I truly, in my heart of heart, believe that that's possible. Because I watch these guys singing to thousands of people in that theatre. And I go, oh, I could have been Orpheus or Eurydice. Bitch, no you couldn't. Move out of your parents' house, it's time. So I think I just feel like the more art I'm exposed to, the dumber I feel. And I don't think that's a new idea. I think that's the point of art. And I think that's the point of us kind of just needing to engage in alternative things and not just be stuck in our little echo chamber of like TikTok algorithm and people who just say one way. Now we're kind of working our way backwards, interestingly, through the week, and we will meet and shake hands with the Jess who filmed the podcast last week. That is what we're doing. We're working our way backwards. So I went to see Hadestown. It was good. It was great. It was interesting. It was beautiful. All that stuff. Could I have done it? Sure. Not really. So then, and when I say then, I don't mean then comes after Hadestown. I mean before, because I'm flip it and reverse it, working my way back to last Tuesday. So then, previously to Hadestown, previously on Jess Fuchs Live, I went to Oxford. Now listen to me when I say this really clearly. I agreed to do a show in Oxford. Now, sure, when I read the initial email, I thought Oxford meant Oxford Street, London. So I thought, hey, pop on a Lime bike and take your ass down to Oxford Street, do a little shopperoo, and you jump on stage for 10 minutes. Well, you can guess my shock horror when I get an email 48 hours before I need to be in Oxford, the city, and they're saying, don't miss the last bus, don't miss the last train. If you miss it, you can't get home, la la la. And I said, sorry so much, excuse me so much, sir, but where the fuck am I supposed to be? And he said, you're in Oxford, deep in Oxford, the place. And I said, I don't know about this. Now, you can then double my surprise when I find out that I am recommended to take the Oxford Tube. I purchase my seat. I go looking around for the tube. I'm with my friend Kate, her husband Nick, and I said, where the hell is this Oxford Tube? And they said, honey, it's not an entrance to a train station, but a bus. I said, why is everyone trying to trick me in this fucking city? And then I come out looking like the dumb bitch. I agree to do a show, Oxford, you don't specify. I agree to go on a bus that's called a tube. Why it's called a tube? London is famous for calling their trains tubes. Why? At every point am I trying to be tricked? Am I just Orpheus in Hadestown trying to escape this hell and keep getting these trying messages of this is a test. This is a test to see how you will handle getting. You can get on the tube bus, but you can't look back for the tube sign or you'll be turned to stone. That's another biblical fucking message. Who knows? I catch this a tube bus to Oxford, but I was late to get on the tube bus, which, because we'll talk about that after, I went to the Notting Hill markets. But I caught the tube bus. I went on, I walked around. Oxford was actually kind of cute. Like, I would have spent a night there or a whole day there. I think I'll be back in London in December. And if I do some more shows, I would go for 24 hours because there's a ton going on. And the heartbreaking part. So this is the other part of the tests that I've been fucked around with. Now, what's it called? I am a drummer. I beat to the drum. I drum to my own beat. You can't tell me what to fucking do. I have a real issue with authority. However, when it comes to comedy, when it comes to doing the job, if you tell me, please be here at 6:30, I'll be there at 6:30 because it's a job. I don't want to fuck around. If someone tells me you can't say this or you can't do that, that's a different kind of authority. So I get to Oxford, I'm yapping, I'm rolling around, I'm enjoying the sights and smells and people and all the freaks in the city. And by freaks, I mean tourists who are so fucking annoying. I don't identify as a tourist anywhere. You could put me in a city that I don't speak the language of for a second. I don't have internet on my phone. I don't know where the fuck I am, what I'm doing, but I never identify as a tourist. I don't. So when people are walking on the wrong side of the road or someone does something foolish, I tisk like I've been there my life. You could put me in the depths of Europe in a tiny town and I would act like it is my birthright to be there and that everyone who's playing a fool. And I follow the locals. I look around. If a local's doing something, I go, that's the way that we behave. And everyone who's not behaving that way, idiots. Idiota. You know what I mean? I'm like, you're an idiot. So you drop me in Oxford and I am going, ugh, these tourists, they don't know how to cross appropriately. Or they're idiots. They stop in the middle of the road to look something up. You pull over. Basic human decency, people. It doesn't matter where you are. Think. I hate people that pull up in the middle of the street as if there's no one behind you. Then I do it myself. And when I do it, I'm not wrong. I'm just stuck in a bad situation I need to get out of fast. And isn't that the beauty of human nature? We always think we're in the right and everyone else in the wrong, even if the people in the wrong are doing behaviors that we ourselves have just done. Let's move on from that point because there's just a truism to that that's inescapable. Something you need to know about me, which you already know. I love a ghost tour. I love a prison tour. I love something that's old shit, weird shit. That's my meat and potatoes. That is my lifeblood. So when I go to a new city, a new place, that's kind of the first thing I'm doing. So when I arrive in Oxford, I get off the tube train. I walk toward the prison. This old prison from 1200s. And I walk in. Now, at this point, it's 4:45. And I say, do you have any more tours for the day? Can I walk around? And they say it's only you can only tour if you pay for and you get taken around by a guide. And the last tour is at 5 p.m. And I said, okay, I'll do that. How long is it? And they said till 6. Now the email I had received said, please be here at 6 for a sound check because the show starts at 7. I thought, 6, 7, a whole hour sound check. But you know what? I'm out of town. I should show up on time. That is the right thing to do. So I say to them, I can't do this tour. Is there anything else I can do? And they say, you'd have to come back tomorrow when the place is open for general wander about. Now you can guess how angry, how shocked, how frustrated I was when I arrive at the venue at 6, as is told on the email, and I turn down the prison tour, and then they go, what are you doing here? It's 6. No one shows up at 6. And I go, huh? And they said, yeah, that's just, don't worry about that. Can you just come back at like 7? We start around 7:15. And the wind outside swells because my body is linked to nature and it can feel how angry it was. I was fuming. I said, what do you mean? That's what the email said. And they laughed and they said, well, you can sit and hang around if you want. I said, hang around. I don't want to sit with the enemy. I said, how dare you send me an email? And I was like, and now it's 6, so I can't go back and see the prison. I'm not staying overnight, so I can't see the prison. In every path that leads to Rome, it should be me finishing the maze, getting through the center of the maze, and at the center is a prison with stories of prisoners for the last 900 years. That's what is beautiful. You know those people who get proposed to at Disneyland and all those weird fucking places that you're like, oh God, if a man proposed to me at the center of a prison with ghosts and stories galore, I'm saying yes. And it doesn't even have to be a man I've met before. It could be a pure stranger, but that to me is a romantic place. The center of an old haunted jail and prison and containing ghosts and history. Oh God, tell me a more beautiful place. I think I might be a version of Morticia Addams because doesn't she like love graveyards or something? I just watched Wednesday on Netflix. Anywho. So then I had to faff around. Now tell me this. By the end of the day, by the end of finishing my Oxford adventure, I had walked 33,000 steps. And some of you might be like, yeah, whatever. To me, that is as many steps as you need to walk across a country. Like if someone said, how many steps do you think it would take you to cross Australia by foot? I'd go 30,000, 33 if you're taking a couple of smallies. You know, that's how much walking I did that day, just because I had to burn so much fucking time in this city. So I go and do the show, the MC, oh God, terrible, not great. And then I go on, the crowd is weird, lots of old people who aren't always the most expressive, but usually in a smaller town, people are just like grateful you're there, so they're usually a little bit more fun. I think sometimes the fact that I'm young, even though I'm not young, like I think sometimes that still throws audiences when they're an older crowd. They're kind of like, we won't even be able to understand her. I'm like, I speak slow. I talk to my grandparents. I know how to make you cunts laugh. Just like, be okay with it. So I did fine, but I had to be on stage for 25 minutes, which is a long time when, imagine, you know, when you're in an awkward situation, let's say someone goes, like you've just bought food and then they go, enjoy, hope it tastes good or whatever, and you go, you too, and then you feel every second of that. Now imagine that for 25 minutes, because that's what I had to do in Oxford. And then I thought, you know what, Jess, and I'm trying to do this thing better, because when you're on stage, it's so vulnerable, right? Whether you're doing jokes that are really general, that doesn't even matter. It's not necessarily the content of what you're saying, but rather the fact that you're on stage. And I know that you cunts know that, because people often will be like, oh my God, what you do is so brave. And I'm like, what you do is so brave, sitting at a desk all day. That's brave to me. But people see public speaking as so scary. And I don't find it scary in the sense of like heart palpitating. I'm more so when I'm on a stage where I'm looking out and there's 100 old cunts with like 2 rows of guys who are dressed like Harry Potter on a Bucks night, because that's apparently what people do in Oxford, because they filmed or it's inspired by, like, I don't know what the story is there. I finished, whatever, get off stage, and then there was a break and I was about to leave, and like all these older people were coming up to me telling me that was so funny, and I was like, okay, sure. Anyway, this old man, bum bag over his chest, he comes up to me and he's like, I love a funny woman. And I thought, don't tell me that I've been wanting to have sex with an audience member for years now, and this is who it is. Don't tell me that is what the gods have in store for me. I don't believe one god exists like the conventional modern day religion, but perhaps I would, after watching Hadestown, get really into kind of the old Greeks. Maybe I'm going to become the guy who's obsessed with Zeus and pray to them. Maybe I'll bring that shit back from. Maybe I'll get into that. I'll start wearing white robes and offer lambs as sacrifice. I mean, I don't know. Maybe I'll get really old school with it. Let's get back to the beginning of time. People want to return to good old-fashioned values. Well, I'm going back to the start. So this man, he's like, I love a funny woman. I said, oh, yeah, is that right? And he said, yeah, I think what you do is so amazing. And I said, my tube bus is on its way. What do you need? And so then he's going on and on about funny women and how funny I was. And I said, okay, you're a bit old for me. And he's saying, you're so funny. I thought it was so amazing. I said, well, you should go and see more comedy. There's plenty of older women in your tax bracket who you could date. And he goes, well, I'm married. And I said, then what are you talking to me for, cunt? I said, okay. And going on and on about funny women. I said, what? I said, is your wife funny? And he goes, no, I'm the funny one. And I said, well, you should have picked better. If a funny woman is that important to you, why are you coming and telling me that if you're not even married to one? Go figure. You always want what you can't have, don't you? Wish your girlfriend was hot like me. Ow. So then I caught the tube bus back. Now before that, AKA before that. That's the system we're rocking with today. This is just an episode about my week. I think it's just little micro angers as we go, but nothing major. Before I went to Oxford, I went to Notting Hill Vintage Markets, Portobello Market. Highly recommend, touristy as fuck. I should have been, now, when I go places alone, I am much more thorough because I'm not distracted. But I went with my friends. And so we were walking through it. But there's so many tourists that you can't dip and weave by yourself when you're with others. But when you're on your own, you can be slick. Like a snake, I just slither through places. But when I've got other people on my back, I've got a unit, I can't leave a man behind. It's about navigating. It's about continuing the conversation whilst looking at things, but not really having a real look. Because when you got people stacking up behind you, wanting to look at your booth, your friends are waiting over there, there's not the kind of peacefulness. And that's why I love being alone. Because then you don't have to worry about all these things of other people. And maybe it's like, well, don't worry about people when you're even with them. I guess I could just stop worrying about if other people are comfortable when I'm with them, but that just seems crazy. But I know people like that. I know that I have friends who are like that. Whether they're alone or with people, it doesn't change what they're doing. They just keep going, well, due north. We keep going north. This is what I want to do. I don't care that I'm with people. And I kind of respect the selfishness of it all. So we were strolling around Notting Hill, me and my friends. Now, one of my friends, we were discussing the fact that she's been addicted to her phone. Aren't we all? The crazy thing to me is as the world gets more insane with everything happening, and then people are pushed more on their phone for kind of a soothing mechanism, it's so weird because it's like the phone makes us feel mentally ill and sick because we're seeing so much of the world, and then counteracting that with so much bullshit of like TikTok brain rot of dances and makeup and all this stuff. And then we're just in this kind of hyper fixated, obsessed with our phones, can't leave our phones, looking at our phones, cycle that makes us mentally ill. And this is why recently I have stopped listening to podcasts or music when I'm walking around. The only time that I will like watch something or listen to something is like, or I try to limit it rather. It's not like the only, but it's like I try to limit it. So like when I was on the bus on the way back from Oxford, I watched a movie because I was like, you just had to fight legions of old men on a stage. Like, you deserve to watch a movie. But then if I'm walking around or if I'm on a bike going somewhere in London or on the tube, I try to just not have my headphones in or not be on my phone, because it's just this thing where we get so... It's so sick, but it's so hard to not. So my friend Kate, she's a comedian, and she was like, oh, I've been so phone addicted. And we were talking about that. And I said, you know what cured my phone addiction is for the last, say, 2 to 3 weeks, every single time I go on the internet and put a video up that I think is really funny and lovely, I get called fat or ugly. And that really makes you kind of go, whoa, I don't need to be on this anymore. I said, have you tried being called fat and ugly every single day for 2 weeks? That might help you cure your addiction. Something to think about. And then she said she's going to get into some art, so she went and got some art supplies. And I do think there is value in like the physical world, being touching grass, like literally touching grass. Like there is something really like amazing to me. It's like, okay, let's say I talk about something funny that I've been thinking about with you guys. There is something kind of like magical to me sitting here, moving my body, holding a microphone, like actually engaging, as opposed to just like sitting at my little computer and like typing out an idea. I think that is the thing. I think we need to get out in the real world more. And I know I am not the first to say it. I sound like a mum who's got a kid who she's worried about, saying like, we need to get out more, I'm worried. But that's true. It's like, I also, let's say that I live till 70, 80, whatever the fuck. Like, you know, those, I don't know if you've heard, there's like those statistics where it's like, if you live till 80, you spend like 1.5 years on the toilet. Like, you know how they do those stats. Think about it like, if you live till 80, let's say you spend 20 of those years on your phone. Like, I'm making this up fully. And I don't think there's data to back me up. But this is the idea, is we spend so much time on our phones, on our computers, on technology, that when you get to the end of your life, if you look at the whole thing of like, I mean, 1.5 years on the toilet, fair play. The toilet's beautiful too. I actually really like the toilet. I think sitting, the other day someone said to me, do you want to sit here before the show starts? I said, I'm just going to go sit in a cubicle. I just need to have sit in a dark cubicle that's weird and just sit by myself, because it feels quite nice, the confines of a toilet, of a cubicle, because you're close proximity. I mean, obviously it does feel like a bit of a big glorified casket, but it depends what mood I'm in. Right before that, I had my show. It was an hour show. I was just going to run a bunch of new material. It was also just because I've been doing a bunch of shows in London and whatever. So I was like, I'll put on a 1 hour show people can come watch and stuff like that, which was so cool. And I was kind of like, oh, I wonder who's going to come, because obviously I've been doing some shows in London, but the venue I picked was really far out of like the main area of the city. Of course, there's a strike on that week, the tube strike that week. So I was then worried like, oh, it's such a schlep for people to get there. And then I felt really bad and all this shit. So I was like, oh God, what are we going to do? Now the room is really small. So I was like, that's good. Even if, 15 people show up. Anyway, about 42 people were there, which was so cool. A bunch of people were Aussies. So I don't know if any of you guys listen to the podcast, but if you were there, thank you for coming. And basically, I just told like some older stories that I've been like, just some good stuff, so that I know that if they paid £10, they get their money's worth. And then just a bunch of stories from London the last couple months while I've been here. Shit talking, complaining, stuff like that. And it was so great. It was really fun. It restored my faith in comedy a little bit, because obviously with everything here, just the ups and downs of like, just trying to get settled into a new place, deciding if I want to live in a place like this, la, la, la. So if anyone's listening who came to the show, I want to say thank you. Thank you for coming. Thank you for being a fabulous audience. Thanks for letting me just run my mouth and being supportive. I love it. It was so fun. And it was so great. And now it's kind of, slowly but surely working on a show, which I'll be doing next year. If you're in Australia, I'll be doing a show in January when I get back. I'm still working on the date, but it'll be like mid to probably late. And then I'm going to go to like Adelaide, Melbourne, Sydney. I'll just ADR. What's it called where you like put the sound over? Anyway, so the show was really fun. Now, during the day, I couldn't focus at home because I was just like doing laundry and all this stuff. I will procrastinate. That's the end of the sentence. You don't need any more information than that. We know I procrastinate. This house will be spick and span on the biggest day of my life. That's how much I procrastinate. So I took myself to the goddamn library. I took myself to the end of the street. There's a library. It's a small one. It's modest. What I love about the library is the only people that use it now are old, weird men who I assume are retired, and their wives are either dead or said, get the fuck out of my house, you're so annoying, because they retired and then they realized how annoying their husbands were. So it's a bunch of very strange old men using the computers, Googling the strangest thing. One guy was just looking on Google Maps, walking his way around the town. Another guy was playing like a video game. Another guy was reading like some sort of like comic book online. I don't know. It was filled with the weirdest men. And I think there's something so funny and beautiful about the people who use the library are men. are old men. Because if you think about education and libraries from day dot, they were made for and by men, and they hated having people like women in there. And so you look at an institution like a library and you go, okay, so the library had its heyday, maybe in the 70s, 80s, 90s. I'm making that up. There's every kind of person in the library on any given day before we had access to stuff on our phones and all of that, right? And now you go back to a library and it's just filled with these people who look like they built the original library, these old, white, withering like men. And you just go, okay, well, at least they know how to build institutions that they themselves love. There's something magical to that, because the biggest thing I've been seeing recently is this kind of, well, not the biggest, but this has been something that's coming across my desk at HQ, is this complaint that therapy and psychology is not made for men. Sitting there looking at someone having a talk about your feelings, it's not built for men. That's not how we like to talk. Okay, well, first of all, Freud basically created that. So thanks, Dad. Thank your daddy for that. And it's like blaming the way therapy's done, as if it doesn't make men comfortable. What do you think? Women are sitting there comfortable? So talk therapy, the way that you sit and just chit-chat and try to work through your feelings, doesn't work for the way men process their feelings or feel comfortable. God forbid they have to feel uncomfortable for a second to fix the problems that make other people feel uncomfortable. Let's not even get into the math fucking equation there that they can't seem to wrap their little heads around. But so I go, okay, build your institutions, build your therapy, build your library. And so I think the thing with the library that I really admire and love is okay, they built a space that works for them. They built a space with books and computers and, you can be near people but not talk to them. You can kind of read books but actually everyone just sits on the computer. Great. And I don't think what I'm saying makes any sense to you, but it makes sense to me. That there is a humor in the fact that the only people using libraries anymore are the men whom it was built for. And in that way, isn't that a lasting legacy? There's a beauty to that. Do you get what I'm saying? That's really funny to me. That idea that they built a space and it went through its heyday and people used it. And then when the doors of the last library to ever close, who will be closing them but a man who looked similar to the man who built the first one itself. The real reason I went to the library was because I had to print a document. Now I get there and I said, hey, excuse me, could I please print? And they said, we're so sorry, but it's out of order. I said, how is the main thing that your institution provides to the general public out of order? And she said, I'm so sorry, it's out of order. I said, okay. Now I'm standing there and I'm thinking, the interesting thing about the library and the printer is that the printer is kind of like the soft serve machine of the library. Just like McDonald's has a soft serve machine, it's very valuable but rarely working. It's the thing we all want to be working, and we are never surprised that it's not. It's a running joke on Twitter, online, that the soft serve machine at most McDonald's is never in order. And I feel like the printer at a library is the same thing. I was frustrated when it wasn't working, but was I surprised? No. I mean, this is a place where they've got books lining the walls, as if they're going to prioritize a copier machine. They're old school, baby. So then I just had to write out my notes. What else went on this week? I feel like those were my main things. I really, as I'm starting to pack my bags and get ready to leave London, I don't have much angering me, because I think me being humbled by Hadestown this week really brought me to my knees in terms of anger. I just had to sit back and accept my fate, my Greek mythology fate of being like, you are stupid. And so in some ways, aren't we free from that? We no longer have to pursue betterment. We don't want to, everyone wants to, oh, I'm going to therapy to do this, or I'm exercising to do that. Accept where you are. There's a power in that, and I accept who I am, and I don't believe in fate, I don't believe in God, predetermined, whatever, but in some ways I go, well, genetics are fate, and my genetics leave a lot to be desired. Next week, I want to say, we will have a great time wherever I'm coming to you from, whether it be a train, plane, automobile, the backyard, the park. I don't know yet where we're going to find ourselves, but tune in. What's new? This episode has not been the kind of level of anger that I typically aspire to offer you. It has been dense in some ways. It has been pointless in some ways. And in many ways, that to me is the job of art. Because when I left Hadestown, I said, what was the point? And when you press exit out of this, you're going to go, what was the point of that episode? Great question. I will see you next week. I hope between now and then, as I journey to Manchester, I have much to say and much to report. I hope you're all well. Thank you again to anyone who bought a ticket and joined me here in London. What a treat. What a time to be alive. Off I pop. Love ya.